what does the 2026 World Cup tell us about the current state of the world?
I think it's mostly a reflection of things happening in the US. And of course, the host country is always the kind of bearer of the tournament spirit. And Trump is the man who kind of moves the world with his wars, his tariffs, his threats. And so you have a World Cup where you have this guy who wants to make it a personal show. So he wants to be the main character, commenting on the action every day, making things happen, sending in military or police or ICE. You have a guy who's attacked one of the visiting countries, Iran, and you have a World Cup where they've tried, probably unsuccessfully, to ask for incredibly high ticket prices, which again reflects Trump's America, the America of where the rich have won the game. So I think, and also it began 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago, as a joint bid between three countries that were close friends at the time. And now, of course, you have hostility. I've been told that Trump even tried to have the World Cup taken away from Canada, have those games moved to the US. So, you also have the reflection of the US's tensions with other countries. I think in that sense, all the main dramas concern the US and its relationship to the world. So usually the host country, whether it's Putin or Mussolini or the Argentinian generals, is doing sports washing. And they want to show the world we're nice guys, we're cuddly, we have world-class infrastructure and so on. Trump doesn't want that. He likes to enact sort of sadism and xenophobia. So there won't be any attempt to sports wash.
Okay. So, from being a sport body, FIFA, you have seen, and we met you at the FIFA World Cup in 2010 in South Africa. So, where FIFA controlled almost everything. So, what do you think is the role of the FIFA at this point of time?
Well, it's true that with South Africa and Brazil, the FIFA were dictating to them and demanding, you have to have a roof on your stadium, you have to build a road to the stadium, it has to be ready now. And with the US, Infantino has kind of given up all his leverage by just using flattery towards Trump. And I don't think this is a FIFA strategy. I think Infantino is very excited that he's suddenly among these powerful men who control the world. And he's had that place since 2018 when he watches the first game of the World Cup with Putin and MBS in the presidential box in the stadium. And so for Infantino, it's this massive thrill that the most powerful man in the world, except she, is someone he meets. Trump has spent more time with Infantino than with any world leader in 2025. And so I think Infantino just has this strategy of flattery because he knows it's his way to remain close to Trump. But as a result, FIFA can't demand anything of the US. So, for example, the fact that fans from some countries can't get visas from Haiti, Ivory Coast, Iran, Senegal, that's against the FIFA statutes on non-discrimination. But FIFA can't ask anything from the US.
Hmm. So, talking of FIFA, do you think over the decades, or at least over the years, it has transformed into being a global entertainment giant rather than a sport body?
I mean, FIFA have never done much to kind of what they should be doing is spreading the money from World Cups to poor countries to build fields, to train coaches and referees. They've never done much of that. That's not new. They've always been in bed with autocrats. That's not new. I mean, the difference is that this World Cup is more lucrative because it's bigger, it's in the US. And the tradition with World Cups is you didn't charge high ticket prices. There'd never been very expensive tickets, or there'd been a few, but most tickets were, say, under $100. Even for the final, you could usually get in for not huge sums. And now they've kind of embraced we're just going to grab as much money as possible. But they do it to spread it to the national federations, from India to American Samoa. And it's a way to get votes because these national federations, a lot of them have very little income except the money they get from FIFA. FIFA's only source of significant income is the World Cup, the Men's World Cup. So you give it to the federation, and sometimes the federation president puts the money in his bank account or his back pocket. But then he'll vote for Infantino. So Infantino has been re-elected unopposed 2 times. The presidents of the national federations are happy with him, and they're happy that, they're trying to get 3 times more ticket income from this World Cup than they did from Qatar.
Now, coming to the whole bloat phenomenon, everybody is talking about bloat. Do you think quality tends to suffer because of this increase in the number of teams that FIFA is going to have in this World Cup?
Yeah, I mean, the quality will be worse than ever. Teams like Cape Verde and Curacao Jordan are it's going to be much worse than not just Premier League football, but then Championship football. So the World Cup used to be about really good football. It hasn't been about that really for a long time because if you want to watch the best football, that's the Champions League, the final rounds, the Premier League. It's not this World Cup. But in a sense, that's also not the point because the World Cup is a story of national dramas. So, if Curacao wins a game, that's a world story, even though the football will be worse than Queen's Park Rangers Barnsley. So quality is not really the point. And then in the last, from the quarterfinals on, you might see some good games. But even the best national teams are not as good as, Paris Saint-Germain or Bayern Munich because those teams play together every week.
That's true. So, going ahead, if you look at this World Cup, it's a question that I've asked you even last in the last World Cup and the World Cup before that. Who are the players to watch out for in this World Cup?
The French front four is truly exceptional. So they have Mbappe probably coming from the left, Ousmane Dembele in the middle, Mikel Olise on the right wing, and then behind them, Ryan Cherki. I'm not sure there's been a better front four. I don't know. It feels like Brazil 1970 kind of quality. So Mbappe, Dembele, Olise, Cherki. This is just incredible. And the seven guys behind them are pretty damn good as well. They're kind of Champions League knockout round players.
Hmm.
So I'm not saying France is going to be like that. And the coach Didier Deschamps is a very defensive, careful coach, which I understand. So I don't think it's going to be that exciting a team. But when the ball gets to that front four, you're going to see magical
Hmm.
things.
Yeah.
Um, I and of course it doesn't mean they're going to win because the thing about in a league, the best team wins usually, and in the World Cup, there's so much randomness. Most games in the knockout phase is decided by one goal or on penalty shootouts that it's very hard to say who will win. If you had to choose the best team, Spain are probably the best team, especially if Lamine Yamal is halfway fit. Argentina in decline. England will probably be, we say in Soccernomics, the new Soccernomics, it's that if England win, then for the first time since 1966, it will not really be a surprise because England are now consistently a top five team in the world. Messi is still there, never discount Messi. He's still the most skillful player in the world. So you have, I would say, France, England, and Spain probably a cut above the rest.
uh,
Those are the teams I would look for, and then the French front four is a truly exceptional combination.
so this, you in Soccernomics, generally you bring in a lot of data. So do you think, modern data analytics can identify future stars, better than traditional scouting?
I think a combination of both is very impressive, and it's true that the data gets better and better. How many chances created is a very good metric on which to judge an attacking player. With defensive players, how many players beat them in their zone, those kinds of things. So I think almost all the top clubs in the world use data in parts, but very few rely only. Nobody, I think, relies only on data. The teams that are most innovative, we say in Soccernomics, are probably Brighton and Brentford, and all the clubs that Tony Bloom, the Brighton owner, owns in Scotland, where Hearts almost won the league, in Belgium. So, the Brighton and Brentford operations are, I think, the most impressive that are anywhere.
Mhm. Yeah, and like in South Africa, where stadiums that were chosen for various matches turned out to be empty stadiums, used by we don't know who. So there was a disappointment, in terms of generating footballing culture in a country like South Africa. Do you think in this three-country format too, some of the locations chosen are, uh, do those venues surprise you in the sense that these will not be used for any kind of promotion of football in the future?
I mean, it's a very different proposition because South Africa didn't really have any world-class stadiums. US, Mexico, and Canada didn't have to build any stadiums because they have, loads of great stadiums, mostly not for soccer, but they don't need to create more sporting infrastructure. They have it already.
Hmm.
Um, I would say the thing about Mexico is obviously a soccer nation, always has been. The thing about the US and Canada is that soccer is now quite a big sport there. So among younger people, soccer is more popular than baseball in the US, and generally soccer is about even with baseball, number three. And it's just that Major League Soccer is not a big deal. So American soccer fans watch English football, they watch Mexican football, they watch football from whatever country they originate in. When I lived in Boston 30 years ago, there was a whole Italian quarter where people would watch the Serie A on live TV even 30 years ago.
Hmm.
There's women's soccer, there's five-a-side. So soccer is already big in America. The thing it doesn't have is a big domestic league, but maybe it doesn't need that. So I don't think that World Cups particularly promote soccer. And I don't think America particularly needs that or that this will make much difference. Soccer has been promoted day in, day out by having the Premier League on, network television in the US. That's much more impactful than this World Cup.
Okay, okay. We are going to this World Cup again for the third time without Italy, but somehow there's a country like Norway coming in, with some big names part of it. So, what do you think? What are you looking forward to in this World Cup? Without no, countries like Italy and with countries like Norway.
I mean, Italy is a very poor team. So, it's sort of like Hungary in the past. It used to be a great football country, but it's not now. I saw their game against Bosnia. It was really dreadful. So we're not missing them. Norway are probably a much better team than Italy. I think in the first round, the teams like England and France, it would be a miracle if they don't reach the next round. So the first round for the big teams is kind of a warm-up. The excitement will be, does Ecuador qualify? Does Curacao qualify? Does one of these very small countries qualify, which probably one or two of them will? And that will be what excitement there is in the first round. So it's a
Hmm.
little bit like the NBA regular season. There'll be a lot of pointless matches. And then, from the round of 32 on, you start to get good teams against good teams, and you get the dramas of, I don't know, Brazil against Holland sort of thing. So really, the World Cup only starts this time in quality terms about 2 weeks in.
What would a meaningful reform at FIFA would mean for you?
I mean, it happened at the IOC. I don't think it's ever going to happen at FIFA. What I'd like to see them do is to, instead of having countries bid for World Cups and offer bribes and inducements, I'd like for you to say, actually, okay, we want to develop football, right? So where can we develop football? Well, two obvious places are India and China. So let's go to India and China and say, we want to give you the World Cup. You need to build a lot of new stadiums, and we'll use a lot of the World Cup income to help you do that. And we'll have a policy with India and China in the years before to, promote soccer, build a lot of kids' soccer fields, indoor fields, train coaches, that kind of thing. And, World Cup generates about $12 billion. So there's a lot of money. Let's say we give half of that to Indian soccer and we use it in a targeted way. Then you're really developing soccer. Whereas what they do now is they wait to see, who bids, and often it's an autocracy that is doing it for vanity reasons like Saudi Arabia. So that is how I would like to see FIFA approach things. And then, of course, you'd have free and fair elections. You'd have accountability, independent ethics committee, and that kind of thing.
Hmm.
And like if we give money to a federation, whether it's India or Barbados, we want to see accounts. What did you spend that money on?
Hmm. Yeah. So, my last question to you is, I just want to know how many World Cups have you covered? Is it 9 or 10 so far?
I've been to nine. The first was as a fan, and the last eight as a journalist.
Okay, okay. So, what do you think? From as we are about to enter this exciting phase of 2026 World Cup. So, are you pessimistic at this point of time, or are you more optimistic than when you started off watching World Cup about the future of football?
I think football will outlive us all. Football is a great game, and once it's on TV, it reaches new territories like India, Indonesia, China. I think FIFA's very disappointed by the way that the expansion to 48 teams. I think that they thought India, China, Indonesia, a couple of those should qualify, and then you're really reaching big markets. Instead, they get Jordan, Curacao, Uzbekistan. So football is beautiful. People love it. People still love it, despite Trump and Infantino. People should love it because it brings great joy and it sort of unites the world. It's the world's biggest party. And I have no fears for the future of football. I mean, partly what we're discussing are luxury problems, the problems of too much success. When there's loads of money coming into FIFA and they spread it around in unaccountable ways. There's loads of money coming in because people love soccer and want to watch this World Cup.